record. Okay. So this chapter again is the next level, which is the tissues, organs, and organ systems. And basically, we talked about the cells already. Now, the next level above the cells is when you put the cells together. Which cells? Similar cells. Similar cells that perform a specific function. We call those together tissues. Later on, in the same chapter, we will put tissues together to make organ, a combination of tissues. And it doesn't have to be the same tissues, a combination. That will make an organ. And you put the organs together, you make an organ system. Organ system is like cardiovascular system, respiratory system, digestive system. And then all systems together, this is the organism. In our case, it's the whole human body. So we did that before. I took it from the very, very beginning in chapter 2, I think. And we started from the atoms and molecules and macromolecules and then the cells. Now we're putting the cells together to make tissues. And then we will go up more to the organs and so on. So what are the tissues that we need to know, which is group of similar cells performing a specific function. These tissues have this function. These tissues have other function. We will discuss it. But basically, we have 4 types of cells: epithelial, connective, muscle, nervous tissues. We will discuss the details of each one of those tissues. And then we will put them together to make organs and so on later on. Remember homeostasis? We talked about that already. And homeostasis, homogeneous, or stable environment, homogeneous, stable environment. And stasis is to keep it. So keeping stable or maintaining stable environment or stable operating conditions in this case. Reminder, we already did atoms. We put them together to make molecules. Put the molecules together, macromolecules, and then organelles. We put the organelles together to make cells, and we covered all of this so far. Now we put the cells together, similar cells, to make tissues. The tissues will perform specific function that we will learn. And as we go and advance, we going to put the tissues together to make organs, a combination of tissues to make organs, like stomach is an organ. And then we put the organs together to make an organ system, like stomach, liver, small intestine, large intestine, and so on. That will be the organ system. All organ systems together, that will be the organism, and we will go through that. But first, we are in this level right here. As you see, this arrow. We are in the level of tissues, which, one more time, group of similar cells performing a specific function. We call that tissues. The first type of tissues is epithelial tissues. Epithelial means covering or lining, like sheets. Epithelial, this is the translation. It's a covering or lining. This is what it means. Since it is covering or lining, what's the difference between those two? Like my skin is covering my body, which means outside. But lining inside, like inside my stomach, inside my lung, inside my intestine, inside the innermost, this is called lining. Both of those is epithelium. And the functions of epithelium and the function of each type of tissue is extremely important. Definitely a question. Definitely. Because if you don't know that, you didn't learn anything, basically. So what are the functions? The most important part of all, it's covering or lining. If it is covering, like our skin, this is for protection. And that's why if you get your skin injured, you're not protected anymore and you get infection. This system of covering is called integumentary system, and we will talk about it when we go to the system level. Still, we are in the tissue level. So protective, barrier. This is one of the functions, like skin. Um, Allow diffusion from the blood to the cells or the tissue cells, like cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular system contain epithelial tissues. Is it only epithelial tissues? No. Remember, we're talking about the tissues. And then when you put the tissues together, combination, that will make organ and then organ system. But part of it, when we go more, it will be diffusion. And then absorption, and we talked about this. Remember when we talked about the digestive system, like you ingest, you put the food in your mouth, and then you do mechanical digestion, break down the food in smaller particles, and then chemical digestion, you make it into the smallest or the building units of each type of nutrients. And these, like monosaccharides, glucose, and amino acids and stuff, this should cross the lumen of the intestine and cross the epithelial cells in this case, go to the blood. We call that absorption. This is epithelial tissues. And one of them, it will be filtering fluids. So it will allow fluids to cross it, but certain fluids. And we call that filtering fluid, like lymphatic system coming. It's coming. Mucus secretion, both digestive system and respiratory system, not just you cross it, but they make secretions. Like for the respiratory system, you make these secretions to moisturize and to trap any like contaminants or dust or stuff like that. And for the digestive system, it makes secretions. We talked about that before. If you remember, you secrete like enzymes and not the hormones, but hormones, we will talk about it later, but it's a secretion anyway. Like mucus secretion, for example. Like when you put the food in your mouth, it is dry. Most of the time it's dry. I'm not talking about juice or something. I'm talking about dry food, rice, let's say, or anything else that's dry food. After some time, it will be moist. How would it be moist? Because you secreted mucus secretion. So you do have to memorize each one of those. Protection, diffusion, absorption, filtration, secretion. You have to know this. So the epithelial is basically like a sheet. And again, it's either covering or lining. Covering means outside. Lining means inside. Outermost, innermost. Covering, lining. That's epithelium. And epithelium, in order to make that sheet to cover or line, the cells has to be packed together, close to each other. Like think about your skin. If the cells are like loose, anything can pass through it. And you don't want that to happen. That's why the cells in epithelial tissues are packed and it make a continuous layer. Like your skin is a continuous layer. Your endothelium inside, the lining of what? Of any cavity or any hollow organ, whatever it is. It has to be continuous and it has to be uh, two sides. One is facing outside and one is facing inside. Underneath that, we have something called the basement membrane. Look at this. This is the wall of the intestine. Look at this part right here. You can see it from outside here. This is the epithelial tissues. It's based on basement membrane, and underneath there will be connective tissues. Wait a minute, you're talking about the tissues. You said epithelial tissues. Yes, epithelial tissues will be part of organs. When you put it in that form of organs, you're using other tissues. Remember, organs, combinations of tissues. I know we're talking about the epithelial tissues, but I'm giving you hints. When we go further, you will see that the organs are combination of tissues. So now we're talking about epithelium. Epithelium is like this, tight, packed, continuous, and underneath there is a basement membrane. Now, there are different ways to put these cells together, and we are going to classify it, and you will to classify the epithelial tissues, and you will be asked about this because it is also important. It's basics. How are we going to classify epithelial cells? Epithelial tissues covering or lining. All right. Cells put together, packed, continuous. That's all right. But there are different types, or there are different ways to put the cells together. Classification. Number one, if we have only one layer of cell like this is one layer only. And you might say, how about this brown? No, this is not epithelium. This is the basement membrane underneath. I'm talking about the pink only. So here it's one layer. If it is one layer, you call it simple. Simple epithelial cells. Simple. One, simple. More than one, two, three, four, anything that's more than one, we call it stratified. What's stratified? Clarification. Stratified means you put it in strata. If I'm you, I would take these words, terminology, because remember, anatomy and physiology, whether we're doing this level of introductory and then or higher level or the more higher and higher it goes up, all the way from the beginning to the end, you're working on the same medical terminology. So I highly encourage you to collect as much as possible of these words. I will give you as we go, as we need, and the more you get, the easier your job will be. So stratified is coming from strata. What's a strata? Strata in Greek is Greek for layer. So stratified means you put it in multiple layers. As you see here, it's two, it can be more. But because the cells are packed and tightly put together, sometimes it can deceive you. It can give you a false impression that it is more than one layer, while it is actually one layer only. Look at this one here. If you look at this, it's one layer here. And this is one cell, one cell, one cell. And then you will say, okay, this is simple. No, how about this? Look at this and this. It looks like two layers. Now we're confused. Is it one or two? Is it simple or stratified? It is simple by definition, but because it looks like stratified, we call it pseudo-stratified. Pseudo is a prefix in Greek that means false. So it is actually one, but it looks like this. If I get like 5 balloons and put them beside each other, it will look like one layer only. It's balloon, 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 balloon. It looks like one layer, like the top one here. But if you push them beside each other, one of them will go up a little bit and one will move down a little bit, still one layer, but it gives you a false impression that it is stratified. We call it, we give it, like we put it alone as a separate entity, and we don't call it simple and we don't call it stratified. We call it pseudo-stratified. Pseudo means false. So all cells will reach the basement membrane, so that will tell us it's simple, but not all of them reach the surface. So what is it then? Pseudo-stratified. This is the first way. So it's either simple, stratified, pseudo-stratified. Next, depending on what the type of the cells are you using. Like simple is one layer of cells. The question is, which cells? Like one layer of cells. Yeah, which cells? Epithelial cells. What type of epithelial cells? This is our next classification. If the cells looks like flat, like this, we call it squamous. Squamous sounds like squeezed. When you squeeze something, you make it flat. This is just to help you remember. Squeezed, flat, thin. So this is squamous. If it looks like cubical shape, look at this. I know it's not a perfect cube, But if I ask you, like, what does it look like? Is it like flat like this? Is it long like a column like this? No, it looks more like a cube. So we call it cuboidal. Cuboid. Cube, we know what's cube. Oid is a suffix in Greek that means similar to, O-I-D. If you see oid at the end of any word for the medical terminology, it means similar to. So cuboid means similar to the cube. Last one is columnar, and columnar means tall, looks like a column, a tall cells. What's the function of each one of those? Like, why do we have, sometimes we have squamous, sometimes we have cuboidal, and sometimes we have columnar? Depending on what, like, which is which, where do we have each one of those? Well, each one of those, besides looking like something, like flat, cube, column, beside that, the other thing is, what is the function? So now we can neutralize each one of those. For the squamous, because it's too thin, flat like this, it will allow substances to pass through it, to diffuse through it. And that's why we use it as lining for the lung and blood vessels. Why? In the lung, you want oxygen to pass through it. You want carbon dioxide to pass through it. So you're going to use these cells, squamous cells. And that's why we use it. Blood vessels, how about the blood vessels? Yes, in certain parts of the blood vessels, known as capillaries, you need to cross, oxygen need to cross and go to the cells. Nutrients need to cross to go to the cells. And carbon dioxide need to cross to leave the cells. So you're crossing now, both directions. And this happens in the blood vessels. So this is important to know. How does it look like? They will ask you about all of this because these are basics. You have to know. How about the cuboidal cells? Where are we going to find it? Well, understand the shape, understand the function, and now you will know where is it. So the shape, it looks like a cube. What's the function? Secretion and absorption. Secretion and absorption. Absorption. Do you remember absorption? We did the digestive system. So secretion and absorption, this will be for secretion part, will be the glands. We have glands everywhere, including digestive system and other systems. So if you wanted to secrete in glands, you're going to use the cuboidal cells. Absorption, like in the kidney. What do you mean by absorption? We will discuss it later. You will know that while you were forming the urine, you're going to reabsorb the good things in order to keep it, in order not to lose it in the urine. So this is the location. You have to memorize it. I'm explaining as much as possible, but you have to memorize it anyway. But don't memorize it as it is. Understand first. Columnar. Also secretion and absorption. But a different way or a different type of secretion and absorption. In this case, it will be secreting enzymes. So that will be in the small intestine. These columnar cells, they will secrete enzymes. And also oviducts. What's the oviduct? The oviduct are these ducts that the ovum go through it in females. So it's going to secrete and absorb different things to help the small intestine and the oviduct. Now, I give you two ways to classify, depending on how many layers. Can be simple, it can be stratified, and it can be pseudo-stratified. Okay? So this is for the layers. How many layers? One, simple. Multiple, two or more, stratified. Looks like false, pseudostratified. Here it is. Number 2, shape of the cells, flat, squamous, cube, cuboidal, column, columnar. Now we will put them together. Simple squamous, 2 parts. Translation. Simple means 1 layer. Squamous means the cells are squamous. And we put it together like this. Simple squamous, simple cuboidal, simple columnar. Stratified squamous, stratified cuboidal, stratified columnar. So we will put it in different ways, put these together. How many layers and what type of cells? Put them together, you are going to make different types. So the first one, combining, is simple squamous. Translation. Simple means 1 layer. Squamous means flat cells. What is it? 1 layer of flat cells. That's it. This is the first one. In this case, the simple squamous is for diffusion and filtration only. So this will not be where we need protection, like not in your skin. Because if you have 1 layer of squamous cells, this is too delicate. Too delicate. Delicate is good for diffusion, passing through it. It's 1 layer of delicate cells, flat cells. Yes, that's easy. Just cross. So diffusion and filtration, but it's too delicate to protect. So this is not what we have in our skin. Where do we have it then? We have it in the kidney capillaries, air cells in order for oxygen, carbon dioxide to pass, lining the heart, blood vessels, lymphatics, lining body cavities like the pleura, the cavity where the lung is located, the pericardium, the cavity in which the heart is located, and so on. So these are the location. Next is simple cuboidal. Translation. Simple is 1 layer. Cuboidal looks like a cube. This is for secretion and absorption, and I talked about it already. Remember that the columnar is also for secretion and absorption, but in other locations. Here, it's basically ducts and glands, and you need to remember this. The last one here for the simple is simple columnar. What does it mean? Simple is 1 layer. Columnar looks like a column, tall like a column. If can you guys mute if you're not muted?
You can mute them too.
Yeah, I'm going to mute. I think it's stopped now, so fine. Okay. Okay, so simple columnar, just like the simple cuboidal, it's also absorption and secretion. But where? In other locations. Digestive system lining is the most important one. And also the gallbladder, but digestive system is the most important one because, again, it is for absorption and secretion, mucus and enzymes. So digestive system is the most important one. Now, next level will be stratified. What's stratified? Strata. Strata. Strata is layers, multiple layers. Multiple layers of what? It can be multiple layer of squamous, so stratified squamous. Multiple layer of cuboidal, stratified cuboidal. Multiple layer of columnar, stratified columnar. But listen to this piece of information. Listen to this. When you say stratified squamous, meaning it's multiple layer and the cells are squamous. All layers? No. No. The top layer has to be of that type. Meaning, if I have something like this, look at this. Look at the top layer, it's a squamous. If you go down, you will see cuboidal. What is this? Is this is stratified squamous or a stratified cuboidal? Squamous. But you have some cuboidal here. Not my issue. If you find multiple layers, look at the top one, and this is the most important one. So this is what determines. It does not has to be all layers the same thing. We give it the name after the top layer. Show me the top layer, I will tell you. In this case, in this one right here, this is multiple layers. Okay, stratified. Next, stratified what? Show me the top layer. The top layer is flat. So it is stratified squamous. How about this one? This one is easy. It is cuboidal and it is multiple layers, so stratified cuboidal. How about this? Well, this is pseudostratified columnar, and you can see stratified columnar. How to know them from each other? One more time. Is it one layer or more? One layer, stratified. That's it. Stratified what? If it is stratified. Stratified what? Show me the top layer, and I will tell you what is it. The top layer here is squamous. We call that stratified squamous, and this is specifically important for skin. Remember, I told you simple squamous is too delicate. It's good for crossing it, like filtration and exchange. Yes, but you cannot put it in your skin. This one layer only. This is not strong enough. We have squamous or stratified squamous, which is the outer layer of the skin. It's called the epidermis. It's also in the mouth. Why in the mouth? Because when you eat, this is like trauma to the inner lining because you put food, it can be dry, it can be something hard. You're eating a piece of chocolate or chips or something like that. This is traumatizing to the mouth. So that's why the mouth have the same tough uh, epithelium, which is stratified squamous epithelium. Do we need to know all of this? Yes, you do. Next one. This one is also very, very important. Very important. Glands. Remember when we talked about the epithelial tissues in the beginning, I told you it can be in different things, including covering, lining, glands. Remember it this way. Covering, lining, glands. Just to make it simple. What is epithelial cells? Covering, lining, glands. Glands. These are the glands. The glands can be one out of two types, either exocrine or endocrine. Understand and then memorize. Let's understand. Exo means out. Crine means secretion. Exocrine, secreting out. Endo means inside. Crine, same thing, secretion. So you either secrete outside, the glands secrete their secretions outside, or they secrete it inside. What do you mean? Here is what I mean. Some glands will have a duct, and this duct will take the secretion out to somewhere else, like the glands in your pancreas, the ones that secrete the enzymes. They have ducts, and these ducts will take the secretions out, not inside, not beside the cells. No, there is duct that will take it out and pour it into the intestine. Do you have a duct? Yes. This duct will take the secretion out. Out is exo. Out. Duct. Out. Exo. So this is exocrine glands. If the glands do not have a duct, they will pour its secretions in between the cells, because there is no duct to take it out. All right, you have to remember that. Very, very important. So is it exo or endo? Exo is out, endo is in. Exo means you have a duct to take it out. Exocrine glands. You don't have a duct, secretions will go in between the cells, like this. Look at this. If this is exocrine or endocrine, look at these cells. Do you see any ducts? These are not ducts. These are capillaries, blood vessels. So we don't have ducts. Which one have ducts? Look at this one. Look at this. The gland here, it does have a duct. So it will make the secretion, and the secretion will pass through the duct, go into your mouth. So this is exo or endo? This is exo. Why? Because you have a duct to take the secretion out. How about this one? Endo. Why? Because the cells make secretion, and the secretion will fall in between the cells, in between, endo. Ultimately, it will end up reaching the blood and go to other locations. But the bottom line is, it does not go to the other locations through a duct. No duct. Ductless. This is endocrine. And endocrine is what secretes hormones. And you need to remember that. Endocrine secretes hormones, endo, no duct. But because it goes in between, it will like move and will reach the blood vessels. Hormones reaching the blood vessels. While the exo, like what hormones, like what endocrine, like your thyroid gland. This is an endocrine organ. It makes hormone, thyroid hormone, that goes in between the cells, endo, no duct, reach circulation, the blood vessels, and be transported to the cells. Same thing for the pituitary gland, the adrenal gland. It's a lot. We will talk about it more later. But all of this is endo. Exo out, mucus secretion. In your mucus glands, they have a duct, so the mucus go into your mouth. Sweat, you make it under the skin, the ducts take it, pour it on the skin from outside. Same thing for sebaceous glands, ceruminous glands, mammary glands, digestive glands, salivary glands. You need to remember this. All of these glands has ducts. Since they have, what's a ceruminous gland? Earwax. There are glands with ducts secrete your cerumen, which is the earwax, into your ears. Mammary glands. How the baby can take the breast milk if there is no ducts. There are ducts. So the mom produces the milk inside these lobules. There are ducts to take it out all the way to the nipple from which the baby is going to take the milk. So there are ducts. Digestive gland, glands with ducts secreting the enzymes that go to the lumen of the intestine. Salivary gland, same thing. So this slide is very important to know the differences between all of those. So this is what we just talked about. So epithelial cells, we're talking about the epithelial cells. So which cells are layers? It is which cells protect? It is epithelial cells. If it is multiple layers, it is stratified. If it is one layer, if it is for one layer and for diffusion and filtration, it's simple squamous. What's the epithelial tissue, generally speaking? Covering, lining, glands. Memorize it. Covering, lining, glands. This is covering the body, like your skin, lining, like any cavity, any tubes, or glands, generally speaking. If you go to the types, simple squamous, yes, diffusion, filtration. How about simple cuboidal and simple columnar? Both of them secretion and absorption in different locations. Stratified epithelium, protection, because it's multiple layer of epithelium. Glands, it is part of the epithelial cells, secreting. What kind of secretion? It depends. Do I have a duct or not? If you do, it's exo. If you don't, it's endo. So we finished the epithelial tissues. Next is the connective tissues. Connective tissues is coming from connect. Connective tissues connect different parts together to provide support and anchor. So they connect, provide support, and anchor. And just to make it easy for you, I told you to remember that epithelial cells are covering, lining, glands. Covering, lining, glands. If I'm showing you tissues, that's not, if it is covering, lining, or gland, you say this is epithelial tissue. That's one. If it contracts, it's muscles. If it is part of the nervous system, it's nervous tissue. If it is none of those, by exclusion, connective tissue. So you don't have to memorize connective tissue. Like, I'll give you an example. Blood, what type of tissues? Let me ask myself, is it epithelial? Like, is it covering lining gland? Of course not. Blood. Does it contract? How your blood contracts, not muscles. Is your blood part of the nervous system? No. Connective tissue. Next. Fat tissue, adipose tissue. What type of tissue? By exclusion. Is it epithelial? No. Not covering lining or gland. Contract? No. It's not muscles. Is the fat part of the nervous system? No. By exclusion, connective tissue, and now you can call it anything. You name it. Anything else that's not epithelial, that's not muscle contract, that's not nervous system by exclusion, everything else is connective tissue. And instead of memorizing, it's by exclusion, everything else. Blood, lymph, fat, bone, cartilage, anything. And these tissues contain matrix in which the cells and fibers are located. Remember the tissues? Here is a definition, and we talked about it. So it's a group of cells, but in this case, the cells are located in matrix, and there are fibrous tissue beside it. This is basically connective tissue. Connective tissue can be fibrous connective tissue if it contains a lot of fibers, and it can be loose or dense. And it can be regular or irregular, and I will show you. This is one. Next one is membranes. This is also part of the connective tissue, like mucus, serous, cutaneous, synovial, and I will talk about it. It's a connective tissue. That's part of the membranes. Or it can be specialized, which is what I talked about. Blood, bone, cartilage, fat cells, tissue cells, lymph, all of these are called specialized, but it can be part of membranes, like this. It's part of the membranes. Which membrane? And how do we give a name to the membrane? What's a membrane? A membrane is like a membrane, like a linear tissues or a flat tissues. It's a membrane. What do you call the membrane? How to name the membrane? It all depends on what do you do, what do you secrete. Mucous membrane, what does it mean? You secrete mucus. What's a mucus? The mucus is like in your mouth. When you put the food in your mouth and you make it moist, this is mucus. Serous, you secrete something looks like serum, like the fluid of the blood. Cutaneous, it means skin. Synovial, secrete synovial fluid. What is the synovial fluid? Inside your joints. Do you know that there is fluid inside your joints? Synovial fluid. So it is part of these membranes. And also it can be fibrous if it contains a lot of fibrous tissue, loose or dense. So let's look at this. Loose connective tissue. The loose connective tissue would be flexible. Dense, less flexible. Can be dense regular, like nicely arranged, or it can be irregular, random. Examples here are important. Loose connective tissue, like this flexible one, is like surrounding the blood vessels, nerves, and organs. The dense ones, dense from the name, it is strong. So this is where you need some support and you don't need stretching, like stretching in these organs. Like blood vessels, they do stretch. Organs, they stretch. But if you don't need stretching, you use the dense regular. What's dense? Dense, strongly packed, stronger. Regular or regular. What does it mean? Regular means nicely arranged, like this. Look, nicely arranged. Look at this one. It is random. What's a good example? Under the skin. Remember when I told you the epithelial cells are located on a basement membrane and underneath there is connective tissue? This is a dense regular. Dense irregular like the ligaments and tendon. It looks like this, like number 2, or like this. Mucous membrane, when you secrete mucus. Serous membrane, when you secrete serous secretions, like thoracic cavity, which is surrounding the lung, or around the heart. Cutaneous means membrane. Synovial in the joints. So look at this. This is the serous membrane surrounding the heart. This is a mucous membrane, which is more inside. Which is which? Mucous membrane secrete mucus secretion, and it's usually inside, not communicating with outside. It's inside this cavity. Serous membrane is more outside of the cavity. Cutaneous membrane, skin. Synovial membrane, you don't have to know much. Just know it is lining the joints. And the name comes from the synovial fluid, this red. Here it is again, loose or dense. Loose is flexible from the name. Dense is not flexible. Regular, under the skin, irregular tendon and ligament. Membranes, mucus, secrete or absorb mucus, or secrete mucus specifically. Serous, secretes serous secretions, preventing friction, like the 2 layers around the lung. We don't need friction in there. Cutaneous, again, is the skin, synovial, joints, for lubrication, for better movement. Next, which is a specialized, is cartilage, bone, adipose tissue. What's adipose tissue? Fat. Like what? Like under your skin. Some of us, like when you say, I gained weight, I have a lot of fat. Yes, you're talking about the fat under your skin, adipose tissue. I want you to know these terms because we're going to use it. This is medical terminology. You have to know it. And I'm giving you medical terminology as we go. Here is some more. Blast, generally speaking, means builders. Clast, breakers. Site, maintaining. Are we going to use it? You'll use it a lot. Fibroblast, chondroblast, osteoblast. Here are 3 examples. And all of them I used blast, builders. Blast, builders. Clast, breakers. Site, maintenance. This is not going to be used once. It will be used a lot of times. I'm telling you. So you have to know it. Now this cartilage, where is the cartilage? Cartilage is type of connective tissue that's kind of rigid, but not as rigid as the bone, like medium rigidity, medium type rigidity. Where is my cartilage? Like your ears. This is cartilage. Okay. Like there are a lot of cartilage like here in your throat, but the one that you can easily see is this one in the tip of the nose. Here it is. And the ear, this is cartilage. But there are different types of cartilage. It can be hyaline, elastic, or fibro. Hyaline cartilage, I don't want to know all the details. I want you to know the location. You can read the details, but you will be asked about location. Very important. Location. Hyaline cartilage. Where? Nose. Ribs. We call it costal cartilage. Trachea and larynx. This is your trachea right here. Trachea and larynx. This is your larynx. If you can see me, your throat, this is your larynx. And under the throat, this is your trachea. Both of them have cartilage, hyaline cartilage specifically. How about the elastic cartilage? What's the most important? Location. Ears. This is elastic cartilage, like this. Can you bend your external ear or outer ear? You can bend it. It's elastic. That's why you can bend it. Okay? Hyaline, you cannot bend it. It's not easy to bend. Like costal cartilage, like it does it mean you cannot at all? No, I'm not saying that. Not easy to bend. The ear is very easy to bend. This is elastic. I'm being specific here. And I'm telling you location. Fibrocartilage. Where is it? In between our vertebrae, our vertebral bodies. In between, like, of course, you know your vertebral column here in the back under your skull. And if you looked at it, I think you saw that like anywhere. You see these vertebra, like a column of vertebra. Each two vertebrae, there is a disc in between, and this is fibrocartilage. Or like one in a knee joint, but this is the most important one. Intervertebral disc. Did you guys hear about this person having slipped disc or herniated disc, and he can't move his back? They are talking about this. This is moving out of place. If it moves out of place, this cartilage, this is what they call it, herniated disc. So we're talking about this type of cartilage, fibrocartilage. Next is of connective tissue is bone. You have to know the function of the bone. What's the function of the bone? The bone is rigid connective tissue. What's the function? Storing minerals like calcium, supporting your body. What do you mean supporting my body? Like if you don't have bone, your skeleton, the body is not supported, you will collapse. Supporting. Protection. Give me examples. Like your chest cage. Isn't this bone protecting the chest? The lung and the heart inside. So it is protection. Muscle attachment. It is my muscle, and I'm going to move my arm. How did I move it? If you don't have bone and the muscles are trying to contract, there is no attaching for the muscles. You cannot move. It also acts as a lever. Like here, like this bone with this bone, it acts as a lever. This type of lever right here. The last one is also inside the bone, you have the bone marrow, which make blood cells. So this will add up to make one of the functions of the bone that you have to know. It is rigid connective tissue. Function, storing minerals, mineral salts, calcium, collagen. What else? Support of the body, protect of the organs, muscle attachment. Its bone marrow make cells. The cells here are called osteocytes. What's osteocytes? Osteo, prefix that means bone. Cytes, cells. The maintaining cells. The cells that maintain. Next, adipose tissues. Next, this is a specialized type of connective tissue. Adipose, what's adipose? Fat. Adipose, fat. Where is the fat? The most prominent one is under your skin. We all have it, right? But you might not know, or maybe you didn't think about it, that there is fat around your eye to absorb shock and keep it in place. There is fat around your heart. There is fat around your kidney. There is fat around any organ that can move. Because adipose tissue, it's flexible. It can absorb shock, right? So if the eye moves, it's moving and surrounded by fat to act as a cushion. So why do we have the fat? Cushion, that's one. Insulation, what do you mean? I mean, if one of us is having more fat than the other, the one that have more fat will be more insulated and he will feel the heat more. It's insulation keeping your heat in. And if you are skinny, you will feel the cold more because you're not insulated enough and you cannot keep your heat. This is what insulation means. So bottom line, insulation, cushion around the organs, storing extra nutrients, energy, storing energy. If you're starving, you can start take from your fat. So this is what it means. Okay. Uh, blood. Blood is one of the connective tissue. How did you know it's connective tissue? Apply the rule. Exclusion. Blood is cells in a matrix. What's a matrix? The fluid. We call it plasma. Cells in plasma. Cells like red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Plasma is the fluid part. What's the function? I think we all know the function of the blood. Transport. Transport. Transport what? A lot. Transport oxygen. Send it to the cells. Transport carbon dioxide. Go to the lung, get rid of it. Transport of nutrients. Transport of hormones. Transport. If you want to send something from one spot to the other, it's blood. Here is the blood. Look at all these cells, and the plasma, which is the matrix, is the fluid part. Fluid and cells. This is what the blood is. Cartilage, again, is rigid, but not as strong as the bone. Location, it depends on which type, and I talked about it. You need to know it. Bone, protection, support, liver, protection, support, liver, plus storing calcium and minerals, plus blood, making blood. Adipose tissue, fat. Why do you have fat? Insulation, cushion, storing energy. Blood, transport. Transport of what? Anything that need to be transported. Put it in the blood will transport it to another spot. So oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, waste products, enzymes, anything that need to be transported. Next system is the muscles. I told you from the beginning, we talk about the epithelial cells, connective tissue, and then we have muscles and nervous system. Remember I told you connective tissue is by exclusion. It's not epithelial, it's not muscular that we're talking about right now, not nervous system. By exclusion, it's the fourth one. And we have three types of muscles that we need to know. Skeletal, smooth, cardiac. Skeletal. You need to memorize this slide. I'm not talking about the picture. I'm talking about this, and I will explain it. But you need to know it. Basics. Core of the chapter. You have to know it. Skeletal. Where did you get that name from? Skeletal are the muscles attached to the skeleton. This is where the name came from. This type is striated. What do you mean striated? Like this, look. Stria, stria, stria. Layer, 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 layer. It is stratified or striated. Same thing. Stria, stria, striated. The name skeletal is coming from skeleton. And they noticed that these cells contain multiple nuclei. These are the only one that contain multiple nuclei. You have to know this. Last one, this is the only type that's voluntary. How to memorize it, how to remember it? Easy. Can I voluntarily decide to contract my biceps, decide to contract my arm muscles, my leg muscles? Yes. Can I relax? Yes. Contract, relax. It's my decision. So this is voluntary. But can you decide to contract or relax your heart? No. Involuntary. Can you decide to contract or relax your intestine, your kidney, your blood vessels? No. This is smooth muscles. So the only one that's voluntary, if you forgot it, try. Say to yourself, which one is voluntary? Skeletal muscles. Yes, I can contract it. Can I contract or relax or do anything with my heart? No, it's involuntary. In. In means not. I-N in Greek, U-N in Greek. Uh, it both cases or I am, all three means not. On, in, am. Prefixes means not. In, voluntary, not voluntary. How about the smooth muscles? Is it striated, multiple layer? Yes, but it's involuntary and uninucleated. What's uni? Uni means one. This is the most important difference. How many nucleus in there? Only skeletal muscles have multiple nuclei. If you get one muscle cell and put it under the microscope, you'll find a lot of nuclei. Only in the skeletal muscles. Smooth muscles and cardiac muscles. What's the cardiac muscles? In the heart. None of those smooth muscles anywhere else. Not in the heart, not attached to the skeleton. Anything else. Should I memorize where the smooth muscles? No, you don't have to memorize. Ask yourself, is it skeletal, like voluntary, attached to the bone? No. Is it in my heart? No. You're done. That's it. You don't have to memorize. You're done. In your intestine, smooth muscles. In your blood vessels, smooth muscles. In your kidney, smooth muscles. Reproductive system, smooth muscles, smooth muscles, smooth muscles. Everything else is smooth muscles. As long as it's not skeletal, voluntary, and not in the heart. That's it. Don't memorize. Understand. So this one is uninucleated. Uni means one, contain one nucleus only. It's in the heart. It's also striated, just like this, but it's branching. Look at this striation here. Look, one parallel to one, parallel to one. But look at these layers. It goes like this and then splits, splits, branch, branch, branch. So it is striated, but branching. And there is a unique word here that if you remember it, you get the question right. It contains something unique that's called intercalated discs. These are discs that connect these cells or these muscle cells together so that the heart all contract as one unit. Intercalated disc, a key to the question, a key to the information. Intercalated discs. Nervous system is the next one. Last one. Nervous system is basically your brain inside the skull, spinal cord inside the vertebral column, and the nerves that goes in and out from those two. And there are two types of cells here. Nerve cells, these are the actual ones that makes the actual communication. What do you mean the actual communication? Like if I touch something with my finger, let me say I'm touching the stove. And then I'm going to feel the heat. What happened? Because receptors here receive the touch, the heat, and the nerve, the actual neurons, the actual nerve cells, will take it from there, go all the way to your brain. So this is what we mean by communication. Communicating between this, the receptors in your fingers in this example, and your brain. Isn't this is communication? These are the actual nerve cells, but these are only about 10% of the components making your nervous system. 90% are other types of cells, are called neuroglia. So neuron or neuroglia. Neuroglia, not the actual nerve cells, not the one doing the communication. I understand. But this is the vast majority. It's the filling, the actual filling, which is called neuroglia. This is 90% of the tissue, nerve tissue. But why do you have these neuroglias? Neuroglias are basically servants, helpers to the neurons. What do you mean helpers? They help the neurons. They bring nutrients to the neurons. They clean the neurons. They provide insulation to the neurons, like something called myelin sheath. So all of these are neuroglias. You have to know this. This is the neuron or the nerve cell. I'm not going into the details. This is more advanced, but I just want you to know that every neuron consists of, or most of them consist of, body, multiple small branches from the body. We call it dendritis. A long extension that's called axon. This is the most important thing to know. I'm talking about the neurons, not the neuroglia, the neuroglia, not the servant, not the helpers, not the 90%. I'm talking about the actual neuron, the 10%. Body, tiny branches from the body, dendritis, and then long extension axon. These are the basics. This is the minimum. So muscles, what's the function of the muscles? Why do you have muscles? Movement, contract, so that you can move different parts. You can walk using these muscles. Also, you need to remember that, remember the shivering. This is another function of the muscles, shivering. This is an actual function occasionally. Like if it is too cold, you start shivering. Why are you shivering? Did you ever think about it? Why am I shivering if it's cold? Because when the muscles contract, automatically it produces extra heat. So that's going to help you. So is this is a function? Yes, it's a secondary function, not number one. Number one is movement, contraction, movement. Movement of what? Contraction and movement of what? It depends. Are you talking about the skeletal muscles? Movement of the skeleton, which is a bone. Smooth muscles, contract in the organs. Cardiac muscles, cardiac means heart. This is for the muscles. Nervous system contain neurons and glia or neuroglia. Neuroglia are 90%, help and support. So this is for the tissues. We finished the tissues, okay? The next level is going to be organs and organ systems. When you put tissues together, combination of different tissues together, that will make an organ. And then when you make an organ, when you put combination of two or more organs together, coordinating and doing a specific job, we call that the organ system. So we finish the tissues. When you put a combination of tissues together, and combination doesn't mean the same tissues. No, combination, different types. When you put them together, that's going to make an organ. When you put two or more organs together, that will make the organ system. Like this example here, I did it before. Here it is. This is nervous tissue, muscle tissue, and connective tissue, and epithelial tissue, a combination of tissues that will make an organ. In this case, it's the stomach. This is an organ. Put the tissues together to make an organ. And then you put two or more organs together, to make an organ system like digestive system here. And I'm going to stop here. And next time we will finish the remaining of the organs and organ systems. So let me stop here.